It's always wild coming onto a live and know that there's nobody there. And so you're talking to yourself, and it's an interesting, like, how do you greet yourself? My Terry, you're looking especially delightful today. Or maybe you're not. And then you say, man, maybe you could have spent some time thinking about that appearance before you hopped on your live. Eh, Whatever. It is what it is. For me, I'm not sure why I ever got into video with this face being the perfect face, along with the voice being the perfect voice for radio. I probably should have just done all audio stuff. But if I did all audio stuff, you couldn't see the enthusiasm, you couldn't see the nonverbals, and you couldn't see the stuff I want to show on screen. So, what are you going to do? You have to just hop on and not even worry about it. That's the key, right? One of my all time favorite memes is the one that says, "Your opinion of me is none of my business." I'll tell you what, man, that is a game changer. When you can get to that level of, I'm going to do me and I'm going to go hard at it and I'm going to do it consistently and just be who I am, um, there's power in that. And that, sure, some people aren't going to like it, and that's okay. You're not doing it for them, you're doing it for the people that it'll resonate with, right? So, it's an interesting kind of prelude into what we're talking about today. Today's topic being the image of self or self image. And it's come straight out of the book, right? I don't know. Did you know I wrote a book called Finding Harmony in the Fucks You Give? It's lovely. Whoop, look at that cover. Wow, that cover's hot and cool. I like that part. So nice job, Alex Borzo. Again, really, just dig the cover, dig the design and the activities throughout the book. And I love the lessons in there. So we're going to talk a little bit about image self. And, when I was contemplating what that is and what it's made of, I came up with three things. And I'm going to share this screen in a minute, but I'm sharing this image right here, right now, with you because it's important and it's in the book. And so the image you're about to see is basically the same image that's in the book, but it got jazzed up for the presentation, right? Because you need to have it jazzed up for the presentation. So, because, no one wants to look at black and white stuff, it's not the 40s anymore. So, we got to come up with cool stuff, man, cool stuff. So I say that I'm going to show this image, and I'm looking at oh, that's why. Because I'm looking under the Chrome tab and I'm like, why can't I find this ding dang thing? Because I know it's right there. I have it opened. And hey, look, there it is. And then if I go like this, boom, there it is even more. So this presentation, oh, dang it. The presentation thing is right here. And this is, I don't know, I think this was slide 3 or 4 in the talk I had with our friends over at Ford Motor Company last week. And we talked about image of self because it's really, really important. Now, most of us are familiar with all three of these constructs: self worth, self esteem, self confidence, but we probably all define them the same way. So I'm going to open this book, page 85, for anyone who's wondering, and I'm going to read a couple of the definitions that we shared. And I say we because Alex and I did this together, and I'm also saying we because, that's important. So the first one, the one at the top of the triangle, is self worth. Definition number one: the internal sense of being good enough or worthy of love and belonging from others. Now, that definition came from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and you can see it, right? You can hear it. Internal sense of being good enough or worthy, right? Self worth. Now, the Cambridge Dictionary And we used the Cambridge Dictionary in each of these three different definitions. So we had kind of a baseline. Cambridge Dictionary says the value you give to your life and achievements. So again, this is you and how you feel about you and what you've done. Are you worthy? Right? Is what you've done good enough? Or is it fantastic or great or lousy or whatever the case may be? But this is the opinion you put on you about you, right? So it's an interesting thing, and so it's at the top of the triangle. And this particular slide in the book, in particular, in the activity, asks you to put a plot, put one point inside of this triangle as to where you are. In an ideal world, your point would be dead nuts in the middle, right? That would indicate you have high self worth. It would mean that you have high self confidence. It would mean that you have high self esteem. Challenge is most of us don't excel at all three. So let's move on to self esteem. Number two, right? So self esteem is how we value and perceive ourselves. This is based on our opinions and beliefs about ourselves, which can be difficult to change, right? So it's similar in terms of the worth thing and in how we feel about ourselves. And it's also our opinion, right? But it's not necessarily about our achievement in what we've done, but it's just about like our overall. And so the Cambridge, oh, that was from mind.org.uk. The Cambridge Dictionary definition is belief and confidence in your own ability and value. So self esteem is belief and confidence in your own ability and value. And self worth is the value you give to your life and achievements, right? So one's kind of an overarching, self worth is kind of an overarching thing. And self esteem is kind of a right now, moment to momenty sort of thing, right? So you can have a long history of high or low self worth, and your self esteem is going to be a little bit different, maybe moment to moment. Um, which is interesting because the first definition said it can feel difficult to change. I would argue that it changes it's very situational. The last one here is self confidence, a feeling of trust in your abilities, qualities, and judgment. That is from verywellmind.com. A feeling of trust in your abilities, qualities, and judgment. And from Cambridge, the belief that you can do things well and that other people respect you. So, again, all three of these are our eternal belief system, but what they're measuring isn't necessarily the same thing. So, our self confidence measures a little bit more about how we feel other people perceive us, right? What is that external value that we're getting back? And so when I give this presentation, I talk about the idea that if I were plotting my point, it's moved up a little bit, but it's usually right here. Like my self confidence is high, right? You have to be somewhat self confident to stand on a stage in front of 100 or 1,000 or 3,000 people. You can't just do that and feel like dog crap about yourself. That's not how that works. Similarly, with self esteem, you kind of have to be in an okay place there to do that. Now, the self worth thing, it's a little different, right? We talk about this idea of imposter syndrome a lot. And it's that construct where you're like, I'm not sure why anybody would ever pay a lick of attention to me. And so that's a tough one to get past, but it is one that we have to get past. And what's fascinating to me is the self worth that I have is lower than the self confidence and the self esteem that I have. And so as a result, I am willing to do the things that I do for less money than I probably could, right? If my self worth were higher, I would be like, no, I'm not doing it for that. I need X times three. And so it's an interesting way to look at it. So I'm curious from your perspective, how do you feel where your self worth is, where your self esteem is, where your self confidence is, and how do you improve those things? If you're interested, there's some information inside of this book. Inside, you can find it at findingharmonybook.com that will lead you on a little path of discovery, self discovery, of course, that will help you improve the areas where you feel like you most need improvement. So I think that's a good thing. I got to figure out how to do this stop share. I hid the stop share thing, and now I can't stop sharing. So what if I just totally minimize this? That worked, but not so much really. Interesting. We have to find the stop share button. Well, do we? Do we really have to? No, probably not. Probably not. So it's a good lesson, right? Self confidence, self esteem, self worth. How do you leverage those things in your life? And now I'm like, well, how do I get that back up on screen since I'm still sharing the dang screen? Hey, look at that! Boom. Not no more, suckers. It's done. I I had a great time, man. I spoke to a couple of hundred people, mostly engineers, software engineers, product developers, designers, and folks that utilize agile methodologies in their everyday life. Because there's a there's a big conference coming up, and a few of the speakers that are going to be at Agile Beyond are from Ford. Like 4 or 5 of them are going to be speaking. So they gave like a preview event inside of Ford, inside the Ford Experience Center, and they hand selected employees. Employees were basically nominated to attend, which was really cool. Um, and so I got to go present this little Finding Harmony talk, which I don't call it the Finding Harmony and the Fucks You Give talk. I call it Mindset Matters. What, no, Mindset Matters how we see things greater than what we see, right? Because that's what it is. It's not, life isn't about what's actually going on, it's about how we internalize it, how we take it in, how we perceive it to be, right? How we respond to it, not react, don't react, respond to it. It takes a little bit of cognitive and visceral response. Um, it's far more important than what just happened, right? You've heard the old saying, life is 10% what happens and 90% of how you respond to what happened. Same thing. That's it. Because it's really, really, really true. We put labels on things like good or bad, but we have no idea in the moment whether or not it was good or bad. There's a great old story about a gentleman who in China a bazillion years ago, he had a horse and the horse ran away, and all the citizens in the neighborhood said, "Oh, what horrible luck." And he said, "I don't know, maybe." And then 2 days later, that horse brought back 6 other horses. And they're like, "Oh my God, what great luck." And he said, "I don't know, maybe." And the next day, his son was out riding one of those brand new stallions, and the son fell off and broke his leg. And everyone was like, "Oh, what rotten luck." And he said, "I don't know, maybe." And so, as his son's laid up the next day, the army comes by drafting young men for the army, and his son couldn't go into the army because he had a broken leg. So we don't know what's really going to happen. And so, interesting stuff. All right. I will look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel, 10 a.m. Try being on the 10 spot right here on LinkedIn or maybe on YouTube. Or if you're waiting a little bit, it'll be up on my blog. You can see it whenever it suits your fancy. Have a wonderful week. If there's anything I can do for you, let me know. I'm happy to help. And let's figure it out. I would love, love, love to come and teach your team about the material that's in this book. I'm going to have a special on it. If you're interested, drop a comment. See ya.